Imagine this. A soldier crawls through mud and blood in the trenches of World War I. A diver plunges into the crushing darkness of the ocean depths. A billionaire walks into a boardroom where millions will be made or lost with a single word. All three are wearing the same watch, not because it tells the time, because it tells a story. How did a simple timekeeping device transform from a battlefield tool into a $40,000 status symbol that opens doors more effectively than any key? And why are people waiting years, literally years, just for the privilege of spending their money on one? What kind of psychological alchemy has Rolex mastered that makes the wealthy and powerful scramble for the right to own what is, functionally speaking, outdated technology? And to understand how Rolex became this global symbol of power and prestige, we need to go back to a time when men wouldn't be caught dead wearing anything on their wrists. In 1905, a young German entrepreneur named Hans Wilsdorf had a radical idea. Take the pocket watch, the respectable timepiece for gentlemen, and strap it to the wrist. There was just one problem. Wristwatches were considered feminine, delicate, something for ladies, not serious men. Wilsdorf wasn't just fighting the market, he was fighting culture itself. But then came World War I, and suddenly, soldiers needed both hands free to operate weapons. They needed time, but couldn't fumble with pockets under fire. Wilsdorf saw his opportunity and created the first waterproof wristwatch, the Rolex Oyster. Its sealed case could withstand what a soldier would face in the trenches: water, mud, shrapnel. Legend says a British soldier wore one in World War I. It took shrapnel. The soldier survived. So did the watch. This wasn't jewelry, it was armor. In 1927, Wilsdorf pulled off a marketing masterstroke. He convinced a young English swimmer named Mercedes Gleitzer to wear his Oyster watch while swimming the English Channel. When she emerged after more than 10 hours in the freezing water, the watch was still ticking perfectly. This wasn't just a publicity stunt. It was the birth of a brand philosophy that would define Rolex forever. Extreme conditions prove extreme quality. And that idea, that Rolex was built to endure the impossible, would become its most powerful marketing weapon. But Rolex wasn't done evolving. In fact, its most elite transformation hadn't even started. By the 1950s, humanity was pushing its limits, climbing higher, diving deeper, flying faster, and Rolex was right there, on the wrists of the people doing the impossible. In 1953, when Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay became the first to summit Mount Everest, they wore Rolex Explorers. In the thin air at 29,000 feet, where the human body begins to die, the watches kept perfect time. When Jacques Cousteau pioneered underwater exploration, the Rolex Submariner went with him, waterproof to depths that would crush a human lung. When Pan Am pilots began flying across multiple time zones, they wore the GMT Master, able to track 2 time zones at once. These weren't luxury items, they were survival gear, tools designed for the most extreme environments humans could endure. But something strange was happening. The people buying these tool watches increasingly weren't explorers, pilots, or divers. They were businessmen, Wall Street moguls, lawyers, doctors, executives. Why would someone who spends their days in climate-controlled offices need a watch that can survive Arctic conditions or ocean depths? Because Rolex had stumbled onto something powerful. When you wear a watch built for extreme conditions, it suggests you're the kind of person who faces extreme challenges. Because nothing says, "I command empires," like wearing a watch built for war. This shift, from practical tool to status symbol, would set the stage for Rolex's most dramatic transformation yet. One that would take it from the wrists of adventurers to the wrists of the world's most powerful people. By the 1980s, something remarkable had happened. Rolex wasn't just a watch, it was the watch of Wall Street. Rolex wasn't just popular, it was religion on Wall Street. In the pressure cooker of high finance, where billions could be made or lost in seconds, Rolex became more than a timepiece. It became armor, psychological armor. The gold Rolex Day date, nicknamed the President after being worn by several US presidents, became the most powerful silent signal in business. It didn't just tell time, it told a story about who you were. Marketing expert David Ogilvy once wrote, "The watch you wear makes a statement." And Rolex's statement was clear. "I've made it." Former Wall Street trader Martin Lewis explains, "In the 80s and 90s, your first big bonus meant one thing, a Rolex. It wasn't about telling time, it was about telling everyone in the room that you belonged there." But here's what's fascinating. Rolex never explicitly marketed itself as a status symbol. They never ran ads saying, "Wear this and people will respect you." Instead, they let the power players of the world create the mythology for them. And while other luxury brands chased trends, Rolex did something revolutionary. They barely changed their designs at all. A Submariner today looks remarkably similar to one from 1954. This wasn't laziness, it was genius. Because when you buy a Rolex, you're not buying this year's fashion. You're buying into a legacy of power that spans generations. But if Rolex watches were becoming so desirable, why not make more of them? Why not cash in on the demand? That's where Rolex's most brilliant strategy comes into play. One that would transform desire into obsession. What made it so powerful was what Rolex didn't do next. Rolex didn't flood the market. They created desire by denial. Even though they manufacture over 1 million watches a year, they strictly control who gets them, when, and how. You can't just walk in and buy one. You need to build a relationship with a dealer. Translation: prove you're worthy. This is Luxury Psychology 101, the scarcity principle. If everyone can have it, no one wants it. So Rolex trained the world to believe that being told no was part of the privilege, that the wait list was a sign you were almost there. It was a test, and passing that test meant you were elite. But here's where things get really clever. Rolex isn't just a brand, it's a timeline. Every model, every edition, every release is linked to a moment in human achievement. You're not buying a watch, you're buying a slice of Everest. You're buying Cold War pilot swagger. You're buying the same crown Paul Newman wore, the same submariner Sean Connery flexed as Bond. This is aspirational marketing on steroids. And because of this, the resale market and demand exploded. Suddenly, the impossible happened. The world's largest luxury watch manufacturer, a company producing over 1 million timepieces annually, couldn't keep watches in stock. Or at least, that's what they wanted you to believe. James Dowling, Rolex historian and author, pulls back the curtain. Rolex has mastered something no other watchmaker has, creating shortage in the midst of abundance. They don't limit production as much as they limit distribution. It's brilliant and maddening. Here's how the game works. Authorized Rolex dealers receive regular shipments, but never enough to satisfy demand. The most desirable models, the Steel Daytona, the Batman GMT, the new Submariner, arrive in tiny batches. The psychology is devastatingly effective. The harder these watches are to get, the more people convince themselves they need one. And unlike other luxury goods, where you can simply order online or visit another boutique, Rolex maintains an iron grip on their distribution network. Authorized dealers can lose their license for breaking Rolex's strict selling protocols. This creates a bizarre ritual of courtship between potential buyers and dealers. Watch enthusiast forums are filled with strategies to build relationship with dealers, buying less popular models, bringing gifts, sharing personal stories. One collector, who spent over $100,000 before being offered a Steel Daytona, explains, "It's like dating someone who keeps making you prove your love before they'll commit. Except, you're the one paying for every date." By 2023, the waitlist phenomenon had become so extreme that some dealers stopped taking names altogether. "We're not accepting new clients for steel sports models" became the standard response. This isn't just scarcity marketing. It's genius-level psychological manipulation. For most products, being told no would make you shop elsewhere. But for Rolex, being rejected only intensifies desire. And this manufactured drought created something Rolex never explicitly intended, but certainly doesn't mind: a secondary market where their watches trade like financial assets on a commodities exchange. In December 2013, something curious happened at a Phillips auction in Geneva. A rare Rolex Daytona, known as the Paul Newman for its association with the actor, sold for $1.1 million. Not extraordinary by art auction standards, but for a mass-produced wristwatch from the 1960s, it was unprecedented. Fast forward to 2017, another Paul Newman Daytona, this one actually owned by Paul Newman himself, sold for $17.8 million, setting a world record. And suddenly, something shifted in the watch world. Rolex wasn't just jewelry anymore. It wasn't even just a status symbol. It became an asset class. Benjamin Clymer, founder of watch publication Hodinkee, notes, "Around 2016, we saw the watch market transform. Collectors became investors. Enthusiasts became speculators. The question changed from, 'Do I like this watch?' to, 'Will this watch appreciate?' This wasn't the traditional collector market for rare antiques. Modern, still in production Rolex sports models, Submariners, Daytonas, GMT Masters began trading like commodities. A steel Daytona purchased at retail in 2018 for $13,150 was immediately flipping for $25,000 on the secondary market. By 2021, that same watch reached $40,000, a 204% return in just 3 years. Watch investment funds emerged. Financial advisors began suggesting portfolio allocations in alternative tangible assets. Instagram accounts dedicated to watch investing gained millions of followers. The watch world had entered uncharted territory, a speculative bubble unlike anything seen before in luxury goods. But there's a fascinating wrinkle to this story. Unlike other luxury brands that eagerly embrace their investment narrative, Rolex remained conspicuously silent. They never advertised potential returns, never mentioned resale value. Their website doesn't have a section on investment potential or value retention. Because Rolex understands something profound about luxury psychology. The moment you explicitly sell something as an investment, you transform desire into calculation. And passion, not spreadsheets, sells luxury. This silent strategy proved masterful. By neither confirming nor denying the investment narrative, Rolex let others build the mythology while maintaining their image as watchmakers, not stockbrokers. But by 2022, the speculative market had reached absurd levels. Watches were flipping within hours of purchase. Grey market dealers were offering cash incentives to people with AD relationships. When markets froth like this, smart money often prepares for a correction. And in late 2022, it came. Have you ever noticed how Rolex doesn't advertise like other luxury brands? No celebrities holding products and smiling. No buy now or new collection messaging. Instead, Rolex advertising focuses on one thing: legacy, achievement, permanence. Their tagline: a Rolex is forever. Not buy a Rolex or even Rolex is better. Just a simple statement. What we make transcends time itself. And they back this up with perhaps the most sophisticated sponsorship strategy in luxury. Rolex doesn't sponsor celebrities. They sponsor achievements. They're the official timekeeper of Wimbledon, Formula One, and golf's major championships. Not because their customers play professional tennis or race cars, but because these events represent the pinnacle of human achievement and precision. Marketing psychologist Dr. Sarah Williams explains, what Rolex has done brilliantly is associate themselves not with individuals who might fall from grace, but with institutions and achievements that have stood the test of time. When you wear a Rolex, you're not just wearing a brand, you're wearing the aura of achievement itself. This strategy creates something remarkable, a brand that feels simultaneously exclusive and universal, elite yet timeless. And in the ultimate masterstroke, Rolex has convinced us that their watches aren't just purchased, they're passed down. That a Rolex isn't a product, but a legacy. Their advertising literally tells you, you never actually own a Rolex. You merely look after it for the next generation. What other luxury brand has convinced its customers that they don't even own what they've purchased? This isn't just marketing, it's mythology. So the next time you see that crown logo on someone's wrist, remember what you're really looking at. It's not just a watch that's been virtually unchanged for decades. It's a masterclass in building desire through denial, in turning practical tools into status symbols, and in convincing the world that something mass-produced is somehow rare and precious. A Rolex doesn't just tell time, it tells a story about survival, about achievement, about having arrived at a place most people will never reach. And in a world where status is increasingly invisible, where billionaires wear hoodies and digital wealth exists only as numbers on a screen, there's something almost comforting about a physical object that so clearly announces, I've made it. Because after all, what is luxury if not the ultimate statement that you have conquered not just the elements, but time itself?